My name is Teresa Buckheit. I work for the Youth Services Department at the library in Gettysburg. And I know a couple of the faces here, but if you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick and how many years you've been homeschooling.
I'm Edie, and I've been homeschooling for my two daughters the entire schooling career, and now they're a freshman in college and a senior in college.
Wow.
And I'm Julie, and this is my 16th and final year.
Yay!
And I homeschooled 3 children. The oldest is 23, and he is now a lieutenant in the military. I have a junior in college right now, and finishing up my daughter, Jill, who's a senior in high school.
I'm Ann, and I homeschooled my son for 7 years. He spent the first 4 years in a parochial school, and he is now a junior at Penn State.
I'm Lindsay Whitlock, and this is my 7th year homeschooling. My youngest is almost 11 months, and my oldest is 12.
I'm Lauren, about 13 years. My oldest is just graduating this year, getting ready for college, and my youngest is 3.
Nice. Awesome. And then Emily.
My name's Emily Windover. I work at the library with Teresa. And Lindsay, I miss your little ones so much.
We miss story time. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss actually interacting with the little ones at the library. But this year I'm homeschooling my 10-year-old.
Great.
Yeah, that would just seemed like that's what was going to work for her. My 12-year-old and my 16-year-old are both doing other forms of school, different things from each other also. But my 10-year-old wanted to homeschool, so we're doing that. And I had tried it maybe 5 years. Yeah, 5 years ago, we were living abroad and we homeschooled for about 5 months. So I like it, and I'm not sure if we'll keep doing it once things get back to normal, but my 10-year-old loves it. And yeah, I don't know if she'll want to go back. Yeah.
So basically this was my hope for this was that like the parents who have been homeschooling for many years could offer some insight into like what has worked best for you, and like what knowledge you've gained from homeschooling all your kids.
Well, I guess I'll go first since I barged in to go first last time. I think at Eagle Mom Squad, we talk about the organic nature of homeschooling and how it is growing from the student, who they are and who the family is and what they need and what they want to do. So what worked best for us was an eclectic kind of style where we pulled from lots of different resources and you can pretty much go year by year for what fits with your family. So what worked for us changed every year, but basically that eclectic style. And there's so much available online to pull from, so we were happy with that.
Yeah, and I love the flexibility of homeschooling. And that's, I guess I'm trying to answer. What was your question again, Teresa?
Just like what has worked best for you in terms of like, because I like from my personal experience, I was also homeschooled. I found that each kid has a different way of learning, and homeschooling, in my opinion, offers a better way, like a nice way of tailoring the school experience to the child. But
yeah, and that's what I loved mostly about it, was the being flexible. Every year we try to follow the same type of structure that we had in the past year, but I love that we could be flexible depending upon where our kids were as individuals in their learning styles, because they seem to change a little bit over time, and then where they were just along the learning spectrum, just intellectually, whether it be, they're ahead in English and they're kind of behind in math. So let's focus on math a little bit more this year or this semester. And then with the varying ages of children, my two boys were about 2 years apart. And then I had a daughter who was 4 years younger than the youngest boy. And just being able to be flexible is what I really enjoyed about homeschooling. And it, like Edie said, it's very organic to the family, to family life. It's just becomes who you are as a homeschooler. It's no longer, I'm going to be a homeschooler, blah, blah, blah. It's no, this is our family and this is the way we function. And so.
Mm-hmm.
For us, the plus of homeschooling really was being able to do a personalized curriculum for my son. My son is dyslexic, so he was really falling between the cracks. He is a passionate natural scientist, was from the day he was born. So what I ended up doing was using his love of natural science to bolster his reading, his writing, and really, spent the first year of homeschooling just trying to break down those walls of getting him to realize that he could read and he could write. And what I also found with him was it was important that when he had an assignment, that there be a real life reason for the assignment. So we did a lot of supplementing. He became very involved in organizations, adult organizations, and often in leadership roles. And so he found that when he had real deadlines, it was very motivating. In fact, midway through high school, I stopped really giving him writing assignments because by the time he had hit high school, he had writing deadlines for other people. He was, writing magazine articles. He was giving programs on the, to different public organizations. He was doing reports for directors, boards of directors meetings that he had. So for him, really focusing on science and having that opportunity and being able to interweave the things that were his weaknesses with something that was his passion and showing him real life reasons why he should learn, was wonderful, so that by the time he left for college, he never looked back.
I think for us, the reason it's worked for us so well is, like Julie, the flexibility. I have kids that are 2 years apart, so I'm juggling several little ones, all different grades. So being able to have the flexibility to take a break if I need to, not be so, and like Anne said, the deadlines for us, I guess we do better right now with the lack of deadlines. I don't feel so stressed out that everyone has to meet a certain deadline. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have to emphasize the flexibility is our favorite part of homeschooling.
That's definitely a big part of it. I find that being able to change direction or change course mid-year sometimes is just such a blessing. I have kids that they'll start off with something and just their interest just isn't there, but they're still wanting to learn, but they need a different topic to get their interest going, and or it's just a program isn't working. Like I know I had one son that was very advanced in math, but his writing skills, like his physical writing skills, weren't ready for the program we were using at the time. And so we just ended up just changing gears halfway through that year. And his reading was doing just fine. He just wasn't ready for that heavy amount of writing, and the math wasn't hard enough. So just being able to switch gears with a kid when you need to, or just having a kid that's just not, doesn't fit in a box, and just being able to say, well, let's pick from here. And I'm a curriculum lover. I like to look at all sorts of different curriculums and pull things from this one and that one, and see how they fit together. And doing a variety of things as far as like just homeschooling completely on our own, and then switching gears and joining a co-op and working with them. And we've had really good experiences with both, and just some go better and different years than others, and just being able to make a decision each year saying what's going to be best for each of the kids at this time.
Lauren, I'm curious, did you ever encounter Ellen Mchenry's basement workshop materials?
No, I didn't.
You all might like that. It's just an extraordinary collection of the text, and then lots of student activities that are online you can download and print off yourself, and they're games, and it's not like fill in the workshop. It's like create this game,
Okay.
you know, flashcard or card games and word games and things that help cell biology and neurobiology and linguistics stick in your head because they're fun, you know. So
Okay, interesting.
That's a resource that we used a lot.
Okay.
What was the name of it? What was it called?
It's Ellen Mchenry's Basement Workshop, and she's online and has a lot of free materials too that you can just pull off and use, see if you like her style. She's a pretty eclectic artist who went on to create these wonderful science and English curriculum, and they're beautifully done. I think they're really fun.
used some of her curriculum for geography because it combined geography with art, and it gave plenty of history along with it too. So it's a great program. Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that. That
it's fun.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead, Emily.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, you guys kind of, well, actually, first of all, I want to introduce my friend Aurora, who joined us.
Hey.
This is Aurora. You're just starting homeschooling this year, right, Aurora? Or had you done it in the past?
I had done it with my daughter when she was very young, but haven't done it in several years. So yeah, and this is with 2 of them now. So
yeah,
it's been fun.
Yeah. But the question I was going to ask you, I mean, you've kind of already maybe answered this with everyone talking about like flexibility, but if there was like one nugget of advice that you were going to impart to a new homeschooler, like, would it be like, be flexible, don't worry if your program doesn't work, try something else? Or is there anything else that comes to mind as like a guiding?
I would say relax and enjoy it because it goes really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say don't stress over getting everything. You don't need, kids are natural learners. They learn all day long. So providing a good learning environment, lots of books being around, lots of stuff to experiment with and craft stuff, and just having that stuff there. Focus on reading and basic math, and the rest, it should be fun.
One thing that I really learned, with my son, was really tuning into what set him, what made him curious, and really tuning into that. And one thing that I found with him was that he really loved learning from adult mentors. And that was the one thing that would really set him off. He just, and it's something I do a lot of work with Boy Scouts. And it's something I don't see in a lot of kids, that they don't necessarily have that approach of what can I learn from this adult? And, that's really served my son well. He always approached it as this could be a great learning experience. And he had some he still has some great mentors. And I've been really blessed by that.
That's cool.
I would say a real key ingredient to homeschooling is patience. I've heard it from many people that moms will say, I just don't have the patience with Johnny. And I'm thinking, well, you're his mom. If you don't have patience with him, how can you expect other people to have patience with him? So maybe you need to work on patience, Mom. And of course, I've never actually said those words to somebody, but generically speaking, that's what I would say is patience. And if you don't have it, that's something you got to work on.
And adding to that, I think there's more time in your day as a homeschooler to work on relationships. So if they're driving you crazy after school, maybe it's just a really compressed time to get in all of the family stuff you want to do. But as a homeschooler, you have time to work out the difficulties, and it might seem like it's driving you crazy at the time, but as you work them out, you're growing each other, and it's just becomes a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
I know for us, you know, I'm a lawyer, so I'm horrible at math. And, you know, my son has inherited some of my genes, although in college he got, you know, he's made up for it. But you could always tell when our math frustration was coming to a head. And we had some legendary blow-ups that we joke about now. And we would look at each other and you could tell it was coming, and we would blow up, and we would have an escape. We would escape for a couple of days, head up to the northern tier, go elk watching, do science programs, photography. I mean, they were still technically school, but it was a getaway. And yeah, we needed breaks from math sometimes.
I guess that kind of leads into another one of my questions of what is like something that you wish you knew when you first started?
That I can say for our family, I had this mindset that, oh yeah, I'm going to be the teacher and we're just going to have school and we're just going to have the same family life as we've had from the very beginning. And then more children come and you're still, at least I was still stuck in, I'm just going to be the teacher and we're going to just keep on trucking along. No, it's a completely different way of life. The way you live your life, your daily routine is totally different. I don't know how else to explain it. Just that I think what Julie said earlier, it becomes your way of life. You meet other people who are homeschoolers. You just do things differently than other families that have children in public school. And I didn't have that mindset going into homeschooling. So I wish I had known.
I agree, Lindsay. It is a different way of life from families with public schoolers. And if I had known how wonderful it was, I don't know, I would have probably been, I mean, looking back on my life now with how it's been just relaxed overall, and that serious sense of family, I probably would have been a more vocal advocate of it all along the 16 years. Now I'm at the end, I'm a far bigger advocate of it, because I look at all these families that are rushing, mom's working, dad's working, kids are just going all different directions at the end of the day. And I just think how lovely life was for us, how settled. Yeah, there's stresses, there's arguments, there's all that stuff. There's messy houses, there's whatever. But overall, it's just the word is lovely for me, a lovely lifestyle of family. And that's what it's all about. And you provide that sound, that sturdy foundation for your kids to launch from. I think it's a great foundation. So I'll let somebody else talk.
I wish somebody had told me how loud it was going to be.
I agree, Lauren.
Lots of piano
now,
though.
I
That's
have
good.
2 pianos going all day long, 2 parakeets singing, 2 dogs barking, children screaming, yelling, running around, me going, will somebody please do their math work? And at the same time, it's all lovely. So as chaotic and crazy and loud as it can be, Julie's word is perfect.
I think
For me-
I wish I had known that kids were so different. I mean, I just had 2 versus Lauren, your wonderful brood, but they're so different from each other. And if I had just been set for that, I think we would have been more efficient or something.
Yeah,
But
I
it worked
echo
out.
I feel the same way. When I started my son in kindergarten, we were pretty set in our ways for 2 years until I had to start my daughter. And I did the same thing. I used the same curriculum. We did Mother of Divine Grace, did the same thing with my daughter, and really, really struggled for a few months. So knowing how your children learn is key to being willing to change, the flexibility to change curriculums if you have to, or, pick and choose what you want to do depending on your children. They are so different.
Yeah, it seems like also like, some of the books that I've read about homeschooling, that's one of the first things they say, like, make sure you know your kid's learning style. And it's sort of like, well, what if I don't know? I feel like then the next step is, and be okay with taking the time to figure it out. And it's not the end of the world if you don't know right away. Like,
Yeah.
but like explore, take the time to find out what it is. Yeah.
I think for us, I kind of benefited from the fact that I didn't know a lot of people who homeschooled. And, my dad was a chemistry teacher. I grew up, everybody I knew was either a teacher or a farmer. So, I didn't know anybody who homeschooled. And I really felt after, 4 years of my son being in school, it was so frustrating. He was getting so frustrated that I really had no other option. It was never anything I expected, so I had no expectations of homeschooling. But it really was hands down the best decision I've ever made in so many ways. It saved him. He is uniquely himself, and that's what he was losing. And it opened a whole other world to just our family because of his passion. Suddenly I found myself in the world of nature nerds, and watching raptors from ridges and things that I never did, but that was what set him afire. That's what he loved. And so I've learned so much from him. And that's what's kind of fun. But we, as my son likes to joke, we didn't even homeschool normally. We didn't realize what we were supposed to be doing. I just, I did have the benefit of being around a lot of teachers throughout my life and different styles, but we didn't homeschool like anybody I know. So
It was organic.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't have to be perfect to do it.
It's whatever works for your child, because that's at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, is that your child learns to learn and has that curiosity. What I really liked about homeschooling was it gave my son the freedom to be himself. That's what I was seeing him losing. He was losing, suddenly, he was around kids that, that wanted to play video games all the time. Well, I knew he was a kid that never wanted to be inside, always had boots on. And, like one of our friends said, whatever you told him when he was in the woods, he would remember it, and he's forest management. that he was so uniquely himself, and that's what he was losing. And that's what I think a lot of our children lose. And when you homeschool, you can preserve that, you can play to their strengths.
Also, another thing I found myself doing as a new homeschooler was comparing where my child was at to another child of the same age, and thinking, oh gosh, maybe he's behind, or am I pushing him in too hard? And then doing that with other children, but also doing that with my own children as the younger ones start learning, well, why isn't this kid where he was at this age? So I wish I would have been told that in the beginning, to not worry about what other kids are doing at the same age as your child, but just to focus on your child and move at the pace that your child needs, not comparing to others.
Awesome. So another question that I had for you guys is kind of one of the most annoying things for me that I get asked when they hear that I was homeschooled is that, wow, like, how are you socialized? The age-old question of homeschoolers. So how do you combat not only just like making sure that they do get out of the house, but like how do you combat that stereotype in the world?
Well, you can choose your friends, and it's sometimes hard to find time to be at home because you're out in the world so much that, of course, you're around people of all ages, and you learn how to socialize with everyone.
Yeah, it's almost sometimes we should call it something different, because homeschooling isn't really homeschooling. It's
different schooling.
Right. So it's like
Self-schooling.
Yeah, I don't know. It's almost, there's no real, I mean, yes, you do a lot of it at home, but really it's just everywhere. It's just life. Socializing, that's such a silly stereotype that is definitely out there, but there is no lack of socializing. Like, one of the most common comments I get about my children is, I just sat down, your 8-year-old son just sat next to me and had a 20-minute conversation with me. To adults talking with my kids. Like, I've never had a conversation like that with an 8-year-old before. And I feel like homeschoolers are more social than most children. They understand how to get along with a 6-month-old, and they understand how to get along with a 75-year-old. And they're not intimidated by adults. They see adults as their creative companions and somebody to learn from and somebody to question and somebody who's going to help them to find out about their life and their world. So they're not limited to their own age group.
I definitely agree with that. What we found is we did a lot, but we're real involved with scouts, and my son played soccer. He was in Biothon for the public school. He did stuff with the state, with different, silly things, like he with a friend of his who was one of his mentors, they decided they were going to find the endangered wood rat sometime before he graduated. I mean, that became their project. So a couple times a year, they would just trek off to, the northern tier, and, it took reading topographical maps, strategizing, and before you know it, they got in with some of the guys at the state, and they were running off with the guys at the state looking for wood rats and hanging off the Grand Canyon, planting chestnuts and trees. And I mean, it's just amazing. You get out there, the people you get exposed to. And what I always found interesting is when people say about getting socialized, I needed to go to seminars, legal seminars. So I would drag my son to legal seminars. And I would try to find things that he would find interesting. And, if you had a gun to my head, I wasn't going to ask a question at a legal seminar. Well, if I turned my back, before I knew it, his hand was up and he was asking, questions about environmental law and agency, things that he totally would lose me. But I found it interesting. He doesn't have, going off to college, he has no fear of asking questions or interacting with professors or researchers or, the people he's come across I would be intimidated to be around, and they're his colleagues. So I find it interesting because homeschool kids I've been around are much better socialized than anybody would ever imagine.
I often wonder how people know, because we'll be out somewhere, just even with one or two of my kids, and somebody random will start talking to me and be like, do you homeschool? Well, there's like an aura around homeschoolers, and I just wonder.
I think it's partly because they can have conversations with adults with a lot of different topics. Often when I'm talking with kids, so I'm doing merit badges with kids who aren't homeschooled, it's hard to talk with them, and you don't get off topic, and I like getting off topic, and so I think that's often what stands out to people when they talk to homeschoolers, is that they have a kind of a broad range of knowledge.
Confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a problem with my kids with socializing. They did a lot of outside activities. They did like martial arts. They did scouting. They did 4-H. Fortunately, in Pennsylvania, you're allowed to participate in homeschool. I'm sorry, not homeschool, but public school activities that are extracurricular, such as sports. So all my kids did that. And I mean, have I seen homeschool families where the kids are not socialized? Sure, like one or two. But the 99% of homeschool families have zero problems with socializing with their kids. And like everybody said already, it's the communications with the adults, and it's the communications with all ages, not just their specific age group. So I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful.
And I guess it's said that as homeschool parents, we have to work a little bit harder maybe to find events and socializing opportunities. But that's very easy if you look for homeschool support groups, because they often list regular activities that people are getting together for, or you could create your own with the other people in the group. And there are a lot of good sources of those online in your area. So,
and I also say you think outside the box, depending upon what your child likes to do. For my son, because of natural sciences, I found that he quickly was beyond what was offered for children. So by the time he hit junior high, we were actually signing up for teacher seminars, things that were offered to teachers for continuing education. So, and there was only one time that he was denied to be able to go to a seminar. And ironically, it wound up being a place that when he turned 16, they asked him to come in as a teacher, and then offered him in high school and their college internship. So, because that was something that he really, really did enjoy. And I find that with some of his friends who were in public school, when I would go to them and say, well, if you like this, you might want to check out this, to try to think outside the box. And, they were kind of reluctant about it. And one of his friends recently, who just started as a college freshman, actually said to me that he wished he had been homeschooled and kind of had listened to me about the different opportunities he should have looked at outside of the normal thinking. So that was kind of a little victory.
For parents who are doing this, for the first time or picking it back up again, unfortunately, Pennsylvania is one of the strictest, has some of the strictest laws in terms of homeschooling. So how do you deal with the amount that you have to do as a parent to homeschool in Pennsylvania?
Well, there's a list of subjects that you need to cover, but within that list, it's pretty broad as far as what is accepted by your evaluator at the end of the year here in Pennsylvania. And so if you show progress through the year and some mastery of the materials, in other words, you're not goofing off, and you touch upon those required subjects, it really just involves regular minimal record keeping and then examples of work at the beginning and middle and end, I guess is a summary.
Mm-hmm. I haven't found to be, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
I haven't found to meet any resistance or have any trouble. Like Edie said, you can find different, there are different resources online that give you learning objectives for each grade. And at least in the Gettysburg School District in Pennsylvania, you can be pretty generic and you don't have to be specific. And in my experience with my evaluator, she doesn't necessarily require, I mean, I know you're supposed to log however many days and hours or whatever you do, but I have always just brought in my syllabus. I haven't been specific. If you bring in those pieces of work, like Edie said, we're really only meeting once at the end of the year and once before the school year starts to turn in your learning objectives and affidavit. So I have heard people say that it's more strict, but I haven't found it to be overbearing.
Yeah, I agree with what Lindsay said. I think it's pretty standard. They ask you, do you have a high school diploma? Have you been convicted of a felony? Usually to do with children. Just the standard stuff. Make sure that the child has regular medical checkups, dental checkups, vision, immunizations that are required. And then, like Edie said, the standards that all schools have to meet in the first place, making sure the children gets all that education, but it's just the showing of progress throughout the year. So the record keeping is not a big deal. It's basically a scrapbook that you're going to put together for your child. It could be really thick. Anne Anne used to provide me, because I'm an evaluator, Anne used to provide me like 4 or 5, like 5-inch binders that I had to go through. It was
I'm a little type A.
Great place to excel.
It was wonderful.
For your kids.
He did a great amount of work, but that's not necessary. I provide to my evaluator probably a binder. It's 2 or 3 inches thick, and it just has stuff throughout the year. And it really is something nice to put on the bookshelf for, on a rainy day when you want to see, what did we do last year? What did we do 5 years ago? It's really kind of neat. So it's not really a big deal, to be honest with you.
Yeah, most people, most people I know, did it all different ways. In my defense, I think because I'm a type A and because I'm a lawyer who assumes the worst is always going to happen. And I did actually practice part-time throughout my homeschooling. So I document everything, and I was used to keeping track of every 6 minutes of my life for billables. So I overdid it. But, all my friends did it different ways, but to meet the minimum requirements, a lot of different ways to do it with however it fits into your family.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't found Pennsylvania to be terribly overbearing. Deadlines, like I'm in the Fairfield School District, and if my objectives and letter at the beginning of the year are late, within a week I get a letter from them They're very on top of things there. But in some ways, I have found that to be a blessing because I like the accountability of having to make sure just to at least keeping it's, and I don't find it to be a lot. Like one binder is usually about all I don't do much throughout the year. I have a drawer system and each kid has a drawer. And as the year goes on, I just throw their work in there. And then at the end of the year, I'm like, okay, what works for their thing? Yep. And I throw together a binder. It's usually like 1 or 2 days of busyness for me. But that's how I do it. And I don't find that it's overbearing, that the school system has ever really been too highly involved and that I worry about them. And at the same time, it's a nice check on myself of, I need to keep some track of what they're doing. I have sisters in other states that keep zero track at all. And in some cases, kids can really fall through the cracks completely with school when that's happening. So it's nice to have a little bit of accountability. And thankfully, even though Pennsylvania is considered one of those more difficult states, I've just never had that bad experience at all.
I have a question just in terms of the evaluation at the end. Do you ever have like a digital component? Like, here's all the, what's the word, PowerPoints that my 10-year-old created, or here's all the like graphic design that she's been doing? Because does that ever happen that you have?
That's what my daughter did with Julie when you were evaluating us, because she had created an art website with all of her works.
Yeah, okay. Because we've been storing some stuff like in the Google Drive, and I've just been assuming that, like, I don't know if I need to print stuff at the end of the year or if it can just be like a digital, something that we share with the evaluator that way.
I know my son had something similar. He had developed his own website and in different programs that he had given throughout the year. So I didn't understand any of it, so I let him do that kind of stuff. He took care of that.
And it used to be that we had to turn in that portfolio to the school system after we brought it to the evaluator. And now you don't have to do that anymore. Like, you show your evaluator and then you have to turn in a letter, but you don't have to actually turn in that portfolio anymore to the school district. So you can be a little more creative with it.
Cool.
I feel like I've been asking a lot of questions. So Emily and Aurora, if you guys have questions, I don't want to.
Well, I kind of had a question about your background, Teresa. You say you were homeschooled. What did you like best about it?
I liked the freedom the best, honestly. I had a great amount of freedom, and I can honestly say that because of my homeschooling, I have the job I have now at the library. We had a scheduled every Wednesday. We went to the library and I took out my, 20 to 30 book pile. And then years later, when I graduated college, I just happened to go back and visit my old childhood librarian, and she remembered me because, who wouldn't remember 30 books walking out the door? And she offered me a job because of that, and just because of the relationship we had built. But it gave us a lot of freedom. I think someone was talking about how, your schooling system can be very creative. I remember my dad being selected for a jury for a trial, and we spent 3 days in the courtroom watching the trial. So like, it wasn't just the books, it wasn't just, straight and you were in school for 8 hours. It was a lot of different stuff.
You said about the jury trial. I've made the mistake of taking my son and actually one of his friends to a hearing that I was sitting as an arbitrator on. And he would have great experiences. He would get to see some of the evidence afterwards. But I remember riding down the elevator and he asked us what our decision was, and we told him. And then the two of them, like they're both sixth grade, I think, proceeded to tell us where we were wrong, how they would have decided the case. And it was funny because there was an attorney that was sitting beside them during the hearing who fell asleep, but these two boys were fascinated by it. But they proceeded to tell us how we were wrong. And what amazed me was they were actually bringing up all the things that we had discussed, you know, behind the scenes at the hearing, and they just came out differently than we did. But yeah, it was a fun experience.
That's neat.
I think the most
You know-
fun with homeschooling is that we talked about flexibility. We didn't talk a whole lot about curriculum, which is a good thing. But it is all the field trips that you can go on, all the different things, because like somebody mentioned, kids are always learning throughout the day. So, you know, it's baking, it's cooking, it's cleaning, it's you know, anything and everything. It's going on a trip. It's, you know, mapping out the trip, finding when you get to those locations that you're going to, you know, what can you do there? What museums can you go to? What can you learn there? What amusement parks can you go to and learn about, you know, physics? And, you know, there's just, the world is full of learning opportunities. And especially for kids in the elementary level, you know, when it gets to high school, it gets a little more serious because you have to, you know, just the topics are a little bit harder, but I think with those elementary level kids, it can be as fun as your mind can imagine.
And a big wonderful thing to celebrate is that we have the choice to do all of those field trips,
Yeah.
to go where we want to go, to stress what we value. And we don't have to make sure that we're following everything that the school board has laid down for our kids to follow. That we have in this country a choice to school as we like, which is precious. I know in Germany they can't homeschool, for instance.
One of the great things about the field trips also is having the flexibility to go off hours, to go when other people aren't going to be there. I know, you know, my son's not an art lover, but you know, we went down to Andrew Wyeth's, you know, studios and Brandywine River Museum, and you know, we were the only ones there because it was early in the morning, off time. And so we got a private tour of Andrew Wyeth's studio, and my son would do photography, and you know, the woman who was taking us around let him crawl around, you know, behind the ropes in the studio taking pictures. You know, so we've had some great opportunities because we were the only ones there at different things. So always take advantage to go off hours when nobody else is going to be there.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences like that at places like zoos, where you go during the middle of an off-season school day, and you know, the zookeeper starts taking out these giant snakes and letting your kids hold them. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question that kind of goes off of this. So this is my first year homeschooling both my kids, and as you've been talking, it's kind of reflecting how our year has gone. You know, it's just one thing leads to the next, and, you know, we're finding these different interests. But as we're coming into the spring, I'm getting a little nervous because I'm thinking back to the learning objectives that I wrote, not knowing anything about homeschooling. And I'm wondering how, like, do I need to go back to them at this point and start making sure I'm checking off the list of things that I had set forth, or how flexible is that?
Well,
It's
first
my
of all, Aurora,
understanding-
I would say
Go ahead.
in the future, be as generic as you can about your objectives. Then you don't have to worry about it. How old are your kids again?
2nd and 5th grade.
So something I used, I would go to the library and get a book called like, what's my second grader need to know?
Okay.
Okay. And I would just kind of peruse that and just to kind of get a general idea. Because 2nd and 5th grade, again, those are really terrific years to play, to really do a lot of hands-on stuff, not dry, boring stuff. So, and truthfully, I would bet most of these moms here that have been homeschooling for over a decade can say around springtime, we all get a little bit nervous, thinking, did I do enough? Oh my gosh. And then we start pulling out all our drawers, our boxes full of papers. We start sorting things out and we see that, wow, we actually had a really good year. I mean, that's been my experience now for the past 15 years to say that. I take pictures of things. Whenever we went someplace, I would collect the pamphlets, I just shove them, in a box, because I'd never remember. I would have my planner out, just my planner, and I would see where we went. I'm like, I don't remember that. I don't even have a picture of that. I'm bummed about it. Maybe I'll take a picture off the internet, and just shove it in the portfolio. But you'd be surprised how much you actually accomplished. And I have heard, no, you don't have to worry about the objectives, because it used to be that the portfolio would go to the school system and the school system could say, oh, well, you said you were going to learn this, but I don't see any proof of that. Well, now that doesn't happen anymore. It goes just to your evaluator. So and you talking to your evaluator and your child or your children talking to the evaluator will be able to see very clearly whether you schooled your kids or not. And as a homeschool evaluator, in the past 10 years, I've only come across 2 families that were iffy. And one flat out lied. And then the other one, I don't really think that family did any work at all. I mean, their high school portfolios were like this thick. I'm like, where's the work? So your evaluator will be able to see by your personality, by your interview, how legit you are. And like I said, 99% of the families are, and you're not gonna have a problem at all.
Yeah, looking back at your objectives is something you might want to do, just because you're thinking, okay, what were my goals at the beginning of this year? Is there something that I missed that I really want to get in before this year is over? But as far as feeling like you're obligated to meet them, you're not, because your objectives can change throughout the year, and that's fine.
There's also like a couple random things like fire safety.
Yep.
Or so I have to make sure I do that.
Yep. Take a visit to the firehouse.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
But otherwise it feels like everything's general enough that.
Yeah.
I have to admit that I don't think, once I drafted my objectives, I don't think I looked at them again until the next year when I'd have to draft them again. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do.
I'm gonna admit, at this point, I just use basic ones that I print off the internet.
Yep.
They cover the subjects and
Yeah.
There were things that I would put in there because I was thinking, what did I need to do to prepare him for the next year? Or different things that he was going to be doing. And you were talking about the fire safety. That was always interesting. I mean, a lot of times it was covered by scouts, but I used to like to keep track of all the different safety things that he did. And he did like wilderness first aid and all this. And I used to make him do, actually for real skills, I had my son be certified in CPR. So he'd have some real skills. But the one year I remember the number of times that he had bear safety was just, I found it to be amusing because so I just put that in there, the number of bizarre safety things he did because of what his interests were.
I'd really like to honor public and private school teachers who I understand have to sit down and write out very detailed objectives that fit with the things that the State Department of Education has decided in detail needed to be covered in the private public schools. You have so much freedom as a homeschooler. You have goals and you could really research education theory and try to go as deeply into that as you can, but you don't have to document and spend your time with that level of, pleasing your boss there. Your boss is your kid. So, and you're their boss, and that organic situation really gives you the freedom to explore it rather than just meeting those gateways.
And it will have a natural flow. Your year will have a natural flow. And by the time you get to the end of your year, you will have interwoven everything you needed.
I have a question on a little different track. I'll put on my library hat now. Is there something that you wished the library had provided? Because we've had homeschool parents ask in the past, like, what resources do you have for homeschooling families? And, you know, I often will just say, well, we have books. But like, is there something that we're not thinking of that would be good to offer for homeschooling families?
Maybe peer-to-peer tutoring?
Mm. So like multiple homeschool families would come and kids would work with each other?
Yeah, I think a social space to do that. I know my daughter talked a lot about wanting to have time to be able to share with others what she was learning and what they were learning. Because she missed that, I think, not being in classes with other people. Just that communal time of being excited about what you're actually learning. So maybe the library would be a good source of that space.
Cool, yeah.
I know as my kids were growing up, the Gettysburg Library was a fantastic source of activities, from the book clubs that Miss Nancy used to do, and Martha.
We're still doing those.
Barbara. And then the summer programming, we did a lot of stuff for the summer programming, and it was great. I think once my kids got a little older, some of the summer programming just stayed kind of for elementary level. So that was a little more challenging. So maybe that would be something just to think about the various age groups, and keep it very, like you guys did things with the animals, and I thought that was fantastic. And I don't know how you would gear animal talk to with older kids. I don't know how that would be done, but I just think something for the different age groups, just because it just seemed very heavy in the elementary level. But again, when we were doing it, it was fantastic. We did lots of stuff at the library, and I would go out weekly with 20 to 30 books, Teresa.
Yeah.
We'd bring in, Giant and Walmart bags, and stuff them full of books. So loved it. Didn't lose too many books. Paid a lot of fines.
Yes. Lots of fines.
Yeah.
I would love to see something for older kids that was science geared, like members of the community, maybe like a physicist or something that just wants to come in and show something that he's interested in to older, like to high schoolers who are interested in that topic, to see if it's something that they would be involved in. Physics and chemistry, particularly, those tend to be areas that homeschoolers struggle to find mentors for their children. And I wonder if the library would have access to different people that would be interested in coming in and inspiring some of our kids in those areas. Maybe supplementing some of what they're doing at home with some real life experience that they don't get to see very often.
I know that there's a Gettysburg professor who writes a column for the Gettysburg Times. He does the planetarium and stuff, and
Oh, yes.
somebody like that coming into
Yeah.
programs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he homeschooled his kids for a little while. I'm
I
pretty
think he
sure.
did, yeah.
I think I know him through soccer. Yeah.
I know I'm in up near, actually closer to Dillsburg. So we went mainly to the Dillsburg Library. And we did a lot of the reading challenge when he was in elementary school, and being dyslexic, it was good for him to have a goal. So that worked really well for him to keep track of his hours and in minutes. And as he got older, we took advantage of actually the local Pennsylvania history programs. We did a lot of that. They were geared for adults, so that we did a lot of the adult programs. But the Pennsylvania history, I thought that was fun.
One year, the library did some kind of like a scavenger hunt kind of program where they had markers throughout the county, and you had to go find those markers, on posts, and then you had to do a rubbing of them. And
We're doing that.
What's that?
We're still doing that. Yeah, that's a summer thing.
That was a great program. We got all over the county and saw lots of stuff. It was a great program. So yeah, that was a good one.
Cool.
I wonder if a scavenger hunt in the library for the high school and middle schoolers would be good to learn the library system.
Yeah, right
That's a good
before shutdown, I was actually planning, there's a book for middle schoolers called Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, and there's a whole program put together by the author that you can do a breakout of the library program in your
great.
library. And I was planning on doing it right before shutdown. So hopefully,
It's
like
coming
once we're fully
Right.
back, we can do that. It kind of along the lines, I don't mean to cut anybody off, but I do want to ask, would you, when you were attending programs, did you like having all the other kids, or would you rather have programs just geared for homeschoolers?
All the kids, all kids.
Although the daytime programs are nice for the library, probably, to make use of the space.
Yeah.
During the school day, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
right.
So maybe some of each, some programming that's
Mhm.
during the school day that is geared just toward homeschoolers, and then, yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I don't have any more questions. Does anybody else?
I guess we could just mention our website that we've put together. And I'll say Anne and Julie and I are among the founders of the website. It's called eaglemomsquad.com. So Eagle, after Anne's son, who's taken a beautiful picture of an eagle for us. That's encouraging and guiding learning experiences. Julie came up with that. So Eagle Mom Squad. And we give lots of videos, podcasts, blogs, and resources, curriculum, different organizations that can help you answer any question. We also have evaluation and consultancy and tutoring services on the website. So it's packed with information if you're an experienced homeschooler or new to it, or not even homeschooling and just would like to supplement what your child's doing. Come to eaglemomsquad.com. That's my ad.
That was great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you giving up your evening to come do this for us. I can't thank you enough for that. Thank you so much, Julie, for working with me to get this off the ground, and also
Glad you
dealing
asked.
with all of these technical issues that we had this evening. And I definitely, moving forward, would love to work with you guys to make more programming and more programming that is, especially geared for homeschoolers, and make it, more of a thing for them.
I think we can come up with this. I think we can come up with some ideas.
Perfect. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, my email for the library is Teresa, so TheresaB, as in boy, at adamslibrary.org. So please get in touch with me, and Emily's there too, so we can work together and
Yep.
It was nice to meet you, Emily and Aurora. Good luck, and let us know if you need any help.
Thank you so much.
This is fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And thanks to the
Thanks,
library.
Lauren and Lindsay and Edie and Ann, for helping me meet Teresa's request.
yeah, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.